And we've got two presenters. We haven't done this for a while, but it used to be our regular way of doing it, where we'll do a shorter, what we call a member project. It can be any type of thing. We've had mods, we've had interactive fiction, just anything you can think of that you'd like to show. We're dying to get some artists up here. And then we have the main event, and that'll be Jackie afterwards. We'll do a short break in the middle. I don't know, do we have any announcements? Kind of
mailing list.
Oh yeah, people sign up for the mailing list. What the heck?
So this is which one? The one on the IGDA.tc.org?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or mailing list. Like there's no one on it, so nobody ever posts on it.
So there's two different mailing lists, and that's maybe something I haven't clarified. There's the one we only will use for invites forever. And then there's one you can subscribe to and just jabber at each other. And we're actually going to be starting to hit that too, just to get the traffic going on there. Anything else, Ryan? Anything? Nothing? Okay, cool. And I know Baylor might have a request, but he's not here yet, so we'll see if he gets here during the break. All right, well, let's just get started right away then. We have a little bit of an AV thing going on, so we're going to have to tag team this next presentation forward and back. I'll just introduce Doug here, and he's going to show off his capstone project from MSB.
All right, like you said, my name is Doug, and that's Josh up there. So at MSB we have a course at the very end of our program where we basically start a game from beginning to end, and this was our idea, our cornerstone game, and as soon as So the name of our game is called Galaxy Destroyer. It is a space artillery game, and we put a lot of effort into this. 12 weeks, we basically start from scratch and got an end product here. We got, there we go. Got a cool loading screen here. Some nice peaceful music. Basically, the objective of the game is to annihilate the other planet. Player 1 is planet Earth, and player 2 is Mars up there. As you can see, we have many, many objects on the screen. Cool explosions, sound. The asteroids, they're actually rotating in 3D space, so they're rotating on all three axes, and you're shooting missiles at them, trying to clear a path, or you can try to lead them towards the other planet there, and they do significant damage, actually. It is a turn-based game, so it requires 2 people. That is our gravity missile. I think there might have been some casualties there. I'm not quite sure. As you can see, the population at the very top is just Jacqueline, I think, as you do damage to the other player. You have an income. Oh yeah, the gravities. That is the tricky part of this game. Each of the objects on the screen here, they each have their own gravity based on their mass, and depending on where you shoot these missiles, they could veer radically off. So even though that was a clear shot, because of the gravity of that asteroid, its trajectory got diverted. Now these standard missiles are the fastest, so they're not affected by the gravity as much. Whereas the more expensive missiles, they move at a slower rate, and therefore they're more affected by the gravity. As you can see, way off, depending on where you aim it. So it takes a little bit of strategy, a little bit of getting used to to get hold of this. As you can see, the money increments per second, basically, and it is based on your population. So as your population decreases, your money increases at a slower rate. We have 5 different types of missiles. We have our standard missile, which you can see in the bottom right corner there. Then we have our nukes. And then we have our biological weapons. And then we have our gravity missile. And finally, we have an EMP missile, which just hinders the money production of the other player. The nuclear weapon and the biological weapon, they do damage over time. So if you can get a shot to them, you can see the population decrease, even if there's nothing else going on. So we're trying to... Because it's in 3D space, sometimes the rocket will be in front of the asteroid, thus creating that. You're aiming with the cursor here, so wherever the mouse is, that's where you're going to be aiming at. And then you can just click the mouse to fire or hit the space bar. And then we have, as a defense for your planet, the satellites, which you can buy, and they basically attack whatever's closest within its range. Smaller asteroid pieces they can destroy, the bigger ones they can just break up. They can intercept missiles, but if they go at a fast enough rate, it's not going to do anything. So it's a good idea to try to get rid of them if you're trying to hit the other planet with a nuke. Now, if you watch the population there, it should start to decrease. Slowly eating away at the other people's. The most fun part about this game is just the gravity. It's a little unpredictable, so even though you think you might have it, the game will show you that you don't. We have a pause menu here, so we can return back to the title screen or exit the game. So.
Anybody have any questions they want to ask? How many people worked on it?
Our group had 4 people working on it. We had basically 3 programmers and 1 artist who worked like heck to try to get this as nice as possible. The text you see on the screen was one of our biggest issues that we had. We have a little tutorial here showing you what to do. So there are the 5 types of missiles and what they kind of do. And you can see here that if, based on where you're aiming the missile, it is going to affect the trajectory of your missile there. So. And these are our key commands here. So you use the numbers 1 through 5 to select your missile. Space on the left mouse button will fire the missile. Escape is your pause button. And then wherever your mouse cursor is, that's where you're going to be aiming. So.
What sort of software tools or engines or APIs are you using?
We use the Dark GDK, and it was my first time using this. Pretty much all the members in our group, this was the first time really diving deep into Dark GDK. And it was actually pretty easy to use. I mean, if you have a good understanding of C++, it's a good platform to use on this sort of project. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, actually, to get in there and try to figure everything out.
How long did you work on it?
Our course lasted 12 weeks. We met once a week for 7 hours or more, depending on if we got there early or if we stayed late. We never left early any of those weeks. And then our quarter ended and we had a finished product, but over these last 3 weeks here, we've been working a little bit more at it, adding a few more things, so this is where it's at right now.
Did you get your grade yet?
We got it.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Jackie Urick. I am co-founder and CEO of a company called Cient, which is a new game startup here in the Twin Cities. We are creating and distributing subscription-based episodic video games targeted towards women 25 to 64. I'm also kind of part of the, cohort here at the IGDA. I do a podcast with Ryan and Tori. I've kind of masterminded all the social media stuff that you see. And I also manage Girls in Tech in the Twin Cities, so I'm a little busy. But it's all good. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is just my experience in the last year about starting a game business in Minnesota and what I've learned. And hopefully you will get something out of it as well. I've also kind of just talked about I'm talking about some basic business things, and what are we doing about the mic? Okay. Talking about some basic business things, and then some tax credits and some other stuff. So there's kind of a hodgepodge of information in here. And then I'm going to stop in the middle for questions before we start talking about the tax stuff. So, okay. So the opposite of work is not, or the opposite of play is not work, it's depression, which is one of my favorite quotes from Jane McGonigal. And I think we can probably all agree that that's true, and that work and play should go hand in hand. And that's probably why we're all in this room today, because we all want to feel like we're doing something creative, we're using our brains, and that's why we go into this industry. And we go into this industry thinking that it's going to be like this, and then it turns out it's more like this. And so it's important to know some basic business things. Even if you aren't planning on doing a startup, it's good to know a little bit about how business works in this industry, I think. So there's 5 basic kinds of businesses, and they're sole proprietors, partnerships, LLCs, S Corps, and C Corps. Sole proprietors and partnerships, you can pretty much just do that. Like, I'm now a business, and you can send me checks. Make them up, Jackie Urick. And LLCs and S Corps are kind of an amalgamation between the sole proprietors and C Corps. And there's some different tax laws and liability issues related to that. And then C Corps are what your typical public traded company is. And if anyone's going to invest in your business, another business is going to invest in your business, it behooves you to be a C Corp. But I'm not here to talk to you about all the ins and outs of that today, because my pro tip to you is don't be cheap, hire a good lawyer, and hire a good CPA. Can't say enough about that. Actually, seriously, hire a good lawyer and hire a good CPA. We haven't actually hired a CPA yet. I'm still looking for one that understand the ins and outs of recognizing subscription revenue, because there's some trickiness with that. When you're looking for a lawyer, it's not just about someone who can write contracts, because just about anybody at a law school can write contracts for you. When you're looking for a lawyer, what you're looking for is someone who has some industry experience. You have to keep in mind, a good lawyer has seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies and deals and all kinds of other things. And they can help network you in the community. And that's why it's worth paying them like the $500 or whatever it is to an hour for them. And hopefully you won't need them very much, because they won't make a lot of mistakes on the upfront, because it's the stuff later on that costs you a lot of money when things go south. So sometimes it totally feels like you're being a jerk, because you have to give contracts to everyone. Although I won't make you guys sign an NDA. But anyone who's doing any work for you, if you don't have a contract that says you own that work, it can cause a lot of problems later on for both parties, not just you. And it's not about like screwing the other person over, and in fact, like you want to make sure that your terms and your contracts are fair. But what can happen is when a company goes to get acquired or you want to sell your IP, someone else owns the code or someone else owns this piece of art, and then that can cause problems and cause the deal to fall through. So the other side of it is if you inadvertently infringe on somebody's IP, the company is what ends up being liable because the company owns the product, not the individual person. So now that you know a little bit about the business part, you're going to need a great team. And a team is more than just the people working for you. A team is kind of an ecosystem. A team is your employees, the vendors, the contractors, it's your mentors and advisors, it's allies, and it's the community at large. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the local resources here in the Twin Cities that I've found so far. So for your basic business needs, we have things like SCORE and Women Venture. For exposure, there's things like Minnesota Cup, Project Skyway, MIDI Demo, Startup Weekend, stuff like that. For events, there's Mojo Minnesota, the Tech Data Men Calendar, Mini Stars events, and Startup Weekend, I guess, put there. Oops. And then community, obviously you're all here, so you understand this part of the community and the XNA group. But there's also MIMA and it's like the whole alphabet soup. MIMA, MHTA, and Girls in Tech, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then collaboration spaces. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's like shared office space that you can go in and use on a daily basis, and they have like whiteboards and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that too. So SCORE is like these old, well, they're not old anymore. It used to be like a bunch of old retired executives, and they like help you with your business plan and stuff. But now they're getting like younger volunteers. What's valuable about SCORE and Women Venture, and even though Women Venture says it's Women Venture, they help guys too. Like it's not just women-owned businesses. Actually, I think like 12% of their client base is guys, which isn't very many, probably because they're called Women Venture. But what's nice about them is they offer these classes that just do the basic, like, here's business 101. This is how corporations work. This is how taxes work. These are things that you need to be aware of. This is how you would apply for a loan. These are the things you need in order to do that. And they're pretty cheap. Like sometimes if you're on their mailing list, you can get them for free, or they're like maybe like 25, 30 bucks, and they usually like feed you and stuff. So it's a good deal. And there's takeaways, and you get to meet other fellow entrepreneurs, and I think that's one of the very valuable pieces is when you're an entrepreneur, there's not, people who aren't entrepreneurs think you're nuts. So it's important to network with other crazy people so that you don't feel so crazy all the time. Exposure. Minnesota Cup is pretty unique in that Minnesota is the only state that does this. And Minnesota Cup is a business plan competition. My company is currently a semifinalist, and there's nobody from Concord here today, is there? No. Concord, I don't know if you're aware of those guys, but we're competing against them actually for the high-tech category. What's great about Minnesota Cup isn't that you can get $25,000 for being the winner of that. What's great about it is it establishes you in the community. It's kind of a vote of confidence for your business plan and your team. And then it also gives you access to a group of people you wouldn't normally have access to, including investors and mentors, etc. With Project Skyway, that's a new program that just started this year. Project Skyway is a lot. Are you guys familiar with Y Combinator? Yeah, some of you. Project Skyway is a tech incubator like Y Combinator, and they just started it here in Minnesota this year. We went to boot camp, and we didn't move on, which was okay. And boot camp was phenomenal, where you had practice pitching to investors and things like that. It was really great, and especially meeting like 25 other startups in Minnesota. It was pretty awesome too. Mini demo, Mini Spark. I don't know if they're going to do another Mini Spark this year, but Mini Spark's like a kind of a small seed fund. They offer a few $1,000s for like app developers and stuff like that. And Mini Demo, that's actually where the Conquer guys got their start, was the Mini Demo in St. Cloud, I think at the end of last year. The collaborative is kind of it's where all the old school, like, investors, corporate type people, suits hang out. It's super serious business. It's like all MBA people and stuff. They're usually at St. Thomas or Carlson School of Management, and they host really high caliber business events, which are great for networking. Events. The Tech.mn calendar. How many of you guys actually use the Tech.mn calendar? Like a few of you? The Tech.mn calendar is phenomenal. Like, Jeff and Mike, the guys that run Tech.mn, do an amazing job of like aggregating information about what's going on in the tech scene in the Twin Cities. I mean, just phenomenal. I have their calendar feed in my Google Calendar so that I can just see where, like, when events are occurring, and then I just drag it over to my own calendar. I can't say enough about the Tech.mn calendar. Like, go to those events. If you're seriously thinking about doing a business, go to those events. Mojo, Minnesota, they're kind of new. They're like this, they want to do this kind of like disruptive incubator innovation thing right now. There's a couple of angel investors and some vetted serial entrepreneurs and some other like executive sponsorship type people in there. What's great about them is, well, they're trying to get more buzz about what we're doing here in the Twin Cities going outside of the Twin Cities. And so I think that's really important. And then, of course, Minibar, which I know many of you know about because I saw you all there this year. So it's important to get out and about. The other thing why getting out and about and networking is important is that it shows the community that we have a game community here, because there's a number of us sitting in this room. But when I talk to people at those other places, like the Collaborative or like Mojo, they're like, what game community? I don't know one game company here. And clearly, there's several sitting in this room, so we exist, right? But the community at large doesn't have visibility to what we're doing. So my pro tip about that is network in tangential communities, like MEMA, where there's a lot of like marketing corporate types who are dying to do like gamification for like General Mills, which kind of feels like it's selling out sometimes, but they do have some valuable insight into things. The MHTA is that's the Minnesota High Tech Association. Their events are great because you meet lawmakers and stuff there. And what's nice about that is lawmakers don't know that there's game companies here. And so the more game companies that are like, hey, we're here, the more opportunities we have to legislate, to lobby for some incentives and things for our industry. Because there's a number of schools here, there's a number of people sitting in this room doing things, but outside of here, they don't know that. Oh, and one last one, Coco. So what's great about going to like Coco or the third place, especially Coco, I really like Coco, the vibe there is great. There's a lot of freelancers and other entrepreneurs there. You bring your laptop, they have free Wi-Fi, they have free coffee, and you can just hang out and do your stuff, and it's really awesome. And then if you want, you can sign up to, it's like $30 for a month or whatever, and you can go there like 4 or 5 days in a month, which is great. And it's nice because you have a place to meet with someone, and it's not in a coffee shop, and it's not all loud with like the espresso machine going and stuff. And I always run into somebody there, and I always have a really great conversation. So speaking of networking, one of the things I've noticed too, from going to GDC and other events, or even like when I go to portfolio shows, I give people my card. I ask them, like, hey, connect with me, and then they never do. Which I don't understand why they don't take advantage of that, because even if they don't personally like me, they might like somebody I know. And LinkedIn is a really good way to figure out who I know, who I could introduce them to, or if I know what they want to do, I can help introduce them to somebody that might be beneficial to them. That's what networking is all about. Twitter is really great because Twitter you can do searches, and so you can kind of like e-stalk people. And there's a lot of game devs on Twitter, actually. And interacting with them, I've found, is like interacting with people in real life. After a while, they get to know you, and then they're really excited when they finally meet you in person. So Twitter's been great. I love using Twitter in this industry. Facebook I don't really use so much because Facebook's like my personal stuff, and so I find that a lot of younger people want to connect with me on Facebook, and I'm like, no, LinkedIn. And as far as like Google Plus goes, I don't really know what's going to happen with Google Plus yet, so I just threw it on there. I've got, there's a few game dev circles that are going on Google Plus right now, and that's kind of cool, but I mean, they're posting the same stuff on Twitter, so it's like, and if it's different, it's like an animated GIF about like Facebook beating up Google Plus or Google Plus beating up Facebook, or a joke about GeoCities or something like. All right, so that's a little bit about networking. So now we're going to talk about marketing. If you build it, they will probably not come unless you do something to encourage them to show up. So here's my pro tip around that. Everything you do once you have a business is marketing. Everything. From who you talk to, from your like job descriptions, from whatever it is. Even me doing that, I'm apparently marketing to you right now. Look at me, marketing. And so keep it in mind when you own a business, everything you do is marketing. And don't ever forget that. See, and I know, Pepper, you just don't want to market, but it's okay. One of my favorite people, I guess, in the startup scene that I totally fangirl is Steve and Gary Blank, who's a serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, and he teaches at Stanford. And he has this great quote, in a startup, no facts exist inside the building, only opinions. Everyone who has ever had a good idea ever thinks it's the best idea in the whole world. It's like, this is the best idea. And then they work really hard to get it out the door and then find out nobody wanted that idea. So the important thing is to test and to answer some questions. Like, who are your ideal end users and how does the game make money? Because if anyone's going to invest in your company, they want to know those answers to those two questions. Not like, it's the coolest like FPS ever since blah. It's like, well, great. How does it make money? Like, that's what they really want to know. So Stephen Gary Blank has this book called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, and in it he talks about his customer development process. And I am in love with this customer development process, and I'm sorry if you can't read the text in the circles. Yes. What? Okay, so the first circle says customer discovery, the second one says customer validation, the third one says customer creation, and the fourth one is company building. Right now, where I am, I'm in this loop right here between customer discovery and customer validation. So what this process really is applying the scientific method to your product development. So you have a bunch of hypotheses around what your product is, and you test them by actually asking customers if they want that or not. That's what you do. And then as you continue to test, then you try to get them to pay for stuff. Like, would you pay for this? Please pay for this. And then, hopefully at some point you end up, you start creating more customers, and you iterate, and finally you have a really great product that customers actually want. In this process, people often find that who they thought they were initially targeting with the product wasn't what it was to begin with, but it's somebody else or some other product that somebody likes. What? Sorry.
Do you want to save questions for later? Or?
You can ask a question now.
Does this stifle creativity?
No, I don't think it does at all, actually. It's been my experience in going through this because we did it ahead like now we've just finished the alpha of our first episode, but what we wanted to find out first was would our customers want episodes to begin with? And so those are the first questions we asked. So now with our alpha, we're going to find out if this is the right, I don't want to say direction, because with customers and especially creative stuff, they think they want something, but they don't really want that. They actually want something else, and they didn't articulate that, which is why you need the analytics piece on the back end to see how they actually used it. But no, I haven't found that this is stifling creativity at all. In fact, what it does is it's actually energized our team, because they get positive feedback, and then they want to improve the product. So it's like getting feedback from the customers, and then they want to like make it better. Okay. Then there's this other concept about crossing the chasm. And everyone in this bell curve here, that's like pretty much where like everybody is. And most indies can't get their stuff out of the tail here. It's pretty esoteric, a lot of the stuff, because they don't do a whole lot of marketing, so it's like really small volume. Or they didn't really think through like who's going to play it or how it's going to make money or whatever. So you need to get across that. You're going to need a marketing budget, a plan, and some good luck. Of course, going through customer development is going to help with that, and I'll let you know when we actually release our game next year, the early part of next year, how well this actually worked, but can't get on it. So yeah, you're going to need some money. In fact, my pro tip is budget for at least twice your development budget plus 20%. So your marketing is probably going to cost more than your actual development, because depending on how much it actually costs to acquire a customer, which is something you have to do a spreadsheet and calculate, which is really fun. Calculating customer acquisition costs. You want your customer acquisition cost to be less than what you're asking people to pay for the game, so you actually make some money on the game, right? All right, so I'm going to stop there. And do you guys have, before we talk about business and tax incentives? Yes?
Is that just your marketing budget, or that was your total budget?
So the total budget is the marketing is the total budget. So the marketing budget is like the development cost plus 20%. Yes?
Where would you be spending that marketing money in general?
Well, for me, I mean, you spend it where your customers are. So for me, I'm targeting women. I'm spending money on Facebook. We're going to do some things with like kind of mommy bloggers and stuff like that. And we're debating right now to do print. Right now, most of our budget is online for this first release. So, but yeah, you want to spend the money where your customers actually are.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you had to pitch the game before you actually make it. I was wondering, do you think like a big company like EA would have to do that as well, or would they just start a new IP and trust that the developer is doing the right thing?
I can't really speak to how EA does things because I'm not really sure.
But I mean, like, I guess for you, do you actually have to create the entire game concept, and then before you even start working on it?
Yeah, so we did. What we wanted to do is we wanted to do an episodic game, and we knew we wanted to do an RPG. So we had those two pieces, and then my writers concepted something, and I liked it, so I thought, well, let's try that, and that's how that all started.
So you pretty much have the whole backward all set up before even starting programming.
Yeah, so what I started with was how do I make money, and then figured out how to make a game around that.
Where are you getting your contacting your customers for your feedback? Yeah, how did you do that? Are you asking a question?
So what I'm doing, what I started last year, so we started the company in April of last year, and then I read this book. It's always trouble. I wish Liz was here because she would really get a kick out of that because she hates when I like, Liz, I read a book. She's like, oh God. So we started in last April. I read this book and then I stopped. We had a concept for a game at that point, but then we're like, no, let's figure out if this would actually make money. So we actually did that through the end of last year. So I spent about like $500 just testing ads in Facebook and seeing what brought people to my Facebook page, like what kind of text on those ads. Like I had like 6 or 7 different kinds of ads, and I was spending $5 a day, seeing how much exposure they got and how much click-through they got and what kind of response I was getting. And then when we got like about 75 people or so on the Facebook page, we started asking them questions. And then they started answering questions, because people love to answer questions, I guess. And so then we started taking that feedback. And then, so now we only have about, because we were actually in stealth mode until like 3 weeks ago when we found out we were going in, that we were picked for Project Skyway. So that was kind of when we were like, oh, we're now out in the public. And anyone who's ever listened to the podcast, I'm like, I can't talk about the company, like for like 5 months or whatever. Can't say anything about it. I know, right? It's the company. Yes. There's a lot of swimming with the fishes kind of games. But so we did that, and then now I have put together a customer panel of 20 customers, and we're going to be doing a more in-depth kind of 15-minute like interview with each of them. And I see some of my customer panel people over there. And so we're going to do, and then like kind of talk a little bit about the game and see it, because we've only built this first episode of the game. So the advantage of having an episodic game model is that if this first episode is just atrocious, we actually have some agility to change it a little bit before the end of the season. So does that answer your question? Yeah, so because we're targeting. There's a lot of women on Facebook, so yeah.
Did you pick that game genre?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Did you pick that game genre, or did customers pick that?
I picked the with the episodic or the sci-fi part. I picked the RPG genre because that was something I wanted to play. So that was the other part. I wanted to do that.
So did you violate sort of one of your rules there?
No, because we're going to test to see, like, because right now we know how many, like, if maybe it'll be more adventure than RPG. I really hope that they're not like, we love hidden objects, because I really hate those games.
Yeah, these stats are nice and all, but I really want to
Right. I know, right? Yeah. Birds in space, like sci-fi birds in space. Yeah, I could see how that could go south pretty fast. So there are some executive decisions that I made ahead. It's not like the customers totally dreamt up everything, but like, here's the direction that I want to go in. Do you guys think this is a good idea? And we're not asking everyone on Earth. We're asking these 20 people.
So, what are your thoughts on purely free advertising? Blogging, Twitter, and like expense, things that don't cost money, only cost time rather than, I guess.
Well, with that, you kind of get what you pay for. Like, the nice thing about Facebook ads is that I can target a specific group of people and a specific gender who like these specific things, and know that, so the people that I targeted on Facebook already like RPGs. So, and there's like 3 million of them. They're women, they're like over 25, and they like RPGs. They like all the big ones. So that was kind of like my test first, yeah.
So those Facebook ads, do they come to like $1 or $2 a click then for being targeted like that?
No, they're actually, they were like 55 cents per click. But I did, I was interested in the, I think it was 55 cents, 55 to 88 cents. It was under $1 for each click. Yes? No, we set them up CPM. So so they're set up so that it's like cost per thousand, like impressions kind of thing. So we were paying for that, and then we paid for a specific click-through rate, and I wasn't going to pay more than, I think I have my budget set to like 75 cents. I wasn't going to pay more than 75 cents, and I'm only going to spend $5 a day. I mean, it was really cheap, but it got a number of people to the site.
So you
And
can set a limit on
yeah,
how long you
yeah.
which is convenient because how do you know that? What are the analytics that you get back from that?
They're actually pretty detailed because then what you can also see now is when someone likes your page, like, or how many other people saw that event occur, which is kind of cool. So like you can see the social reach. So when someone comments on a page or likes a page, because it's not just like the app, like even the analytics of the comments, like you can see how many people saw it, you can see how many people responded to it, you can see how many people's friends who aren't friends of the page saw it, which is kind of valuable.
Do you see the conversion of if someone likes the page and then goes to their wall, and so someone else can see that post on their wall? Can you see the conversion of that?
No, it doesn't show that. It just shows how many people saw it. Yes.
What kind of content did you find that you needed to have on the Facebook page to keep people coming back?
So I hired a social media intern and then what we have is a set of customer discovery questions in an editorial calendar. And so every week she posts a customer discovery question to the Facebook page.
So if you're low budget bootstrapping, like say $100 to $200 budget a month, would you still recommend advertising as one of the places to spend that?
Well, are the people you're going after with your game on Facebook?
Presumably, yeah.
I mean, what you could do is just set up like a $20 test. I mean, $5 for like 5 days. I can tell you that for my crowd of people post on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's when they seem to really like to be on Facebook. So I would, on a Sunday, set up your ad a couple days ahead of time because it takes a little while to get approved. Set it up for like $5 and see what you get. And then if it doesn't work out, don't do it anymore. But don't spend a ton of money on it. Just test it here and there throughout the months. Test different text. You can have like a bunch of different ads running all simultaneously on the same budget. So yeah, just test stuff. No, my company has a Twitter account too, and my intern works on that. So she manages the Twitter account and the Facebook account. Yeah. So she, it was funny when we got like all those, like congratulations kind of tweets. Like she's like, thanks so much, and they're like totally people I know, and it was just really funny. Any other questions?
What was your business experience and your game industry experience prior to starting this project?
So prior to starting this project, I had no game industry experience. However, I had a consulting company for 8 years, so I had an S Corp. And I also was a consultant at Thomson Reuters, and I did social media, online marketing, and web development. I was actually a web developer for like 8 years, and moved into online marketing. And my previous job was doing online marketing for the largest law firms in the world. With like crazy, huge budgets. But what I've learned actually from that is that law firms have kind of similar sales cycles to the game industry because there's a long, like you don't, with lawyers, especially like corporate lawyers, not like your typical DUI person, but they have to woo their client forever and ever and ever to get them to like sign a contract or whatever. And there's always people like, hey, whatever the new hot industry is, like there's all these people competing for that. The sales cycle is really similar in that it's long and you need to have a lot of touch points with the client or the customer to keep them interested. And so I took that piece of knowledge and applied that to what I'm doing here. Any other questions?
So the way you distribute your game, how are you going to tie that to how you advertise for it?
So we're initially going to release the website, the game ourselves on our website, and then we're going to take the entire season and put it on iOS, Android, possibly Xbox Live. Definitely iOS though. So we're going to use the feedback we get from the PC play to kind of help drive the iOS stuff. And there's also like a little question mark part there because I haven't figured all of that out yet. Right. Magic. Something cool happens and then I make money, kind of.
What marketing channels exist for Xbox?
Pardon?
What marketing channels exist for Xbox?
That's the problem that we're having with Xbox. So the only thing that we can think of, like how we're going to do that, because like we're also targeting women, so we would have to do it in a way where, like we were thinking about doing like blogging partnerships or something like that, where it gets in front of people. But yeah, we haven't really figured out how we're going to do that yet. But it also is going to depend on like what the cost is to port it over there, because we may not do it based on the cost. So.
Now, the Xbox version, can be cloud hosted? Can you use it with Xbox?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it still has to be on Xbox.
Yes. Yeah, all of them will be actually. Like you have to have the client. Like yeah, you have to download it or on your phone or whatever too. Right. No.
So when you say you're distributing on your website, you're distributing games that run on PCs.
Yes, initially, yeah.
It's not a
Yeah, because we're still testing out the episodic thing. So that's going to go on for like a good 6 months after that. So. No, because our people really aren't on Steam. That's the other thing. It's like, they're like talking about, well, go to these indie things or go to these, get these game reviewers and stuff like that. And it's like, people I'm trying to target don't care about that. So it's a little bit different. So I can't speak to the other experience because I haven't done it yet. Yeah.
With the different deployments of PC and iOS and say Xbox, do you see this as autonomous, that you're going to have to use it just by PC, or maybe you're trying to make it so that if you get the PC, you can still run it on your iPhone or whatever and sync the episodes?
Yes, I love that question. That is our ultimate goal. So someone would be able to, we want to store your character information in the cloud so that you can, if you download the client on your phone, you'd be able to play from where you left off on the PC. That's not going to happen with this first season, but that's our ultimate goal. Yeah. Yes.
Would you ever consider working with a company like Telltale or something that does episodic stuff, and then we put it on there, and they take some of the heavy burden of the marketing and things like that for you?
But I like the marketing part. Actually, our PR person, she used to work at Telltale, and one of our advisors knows the CMO at Telltale, and they're not interested at all in the female market. That's not their scope whatsoever. And they're not trying to get out of episodic, but they're trying to do a little bit more mobile stuff.
Have you decided on any price point stuff? Kind of how you come to that conclusion? Can you share that?
I can tell you we are not free to play because I think that market is really oversaturated, and it'd be hard to get visibility in that space with so many other. We're pricing ours not at $60 or whatever, but it's not free. Let's put it that way. You have to pay up front for the season, which is something we learned from Telltale, actually. Pay up front. Yes?
Do you feel like there's added pressure to be successful to prove to other companies that focusing focusing on female gamers is important for them to do as well?
I don't know if I would say that there's an added pressure surrounding that. No, I mean, I decided to do this because I'm a gamer and I'm tired of people not making the games I want to play, and so I thought, well, I better just do it myself because no one else can do it. And so, yeah, I don't really feel pressure. Nobody's saying like, oh, you better succeed or it's going to prove that all women don't game, because that's not true at all. There's too much data out there to like say that that's not true. So we'll see. I don't know.
Tell us more about the game itself.
I can't tell you a whole lot about the game because we haven't announced it. I can tell you it's like a sci-fi murder mystery and takes place like a couple hundred years in the future.
Top down.
It's 2D, and what else can I tell you?
What technology are you using?
We're using Unity for it, actually. Yeah.
It's aimed at women, right?
Yes.
What, in your mind, without giving out any information about the game, what differentiates a woman customer from a male customer?
I love that question. Thank you for asking it. I don't think women want, like, some women. Women are not a monolithic entity by any means. Everyone has their different things that they like and they enjoy, just like guys. I just want people to consider who's behind the controller when they make certain development decisions. That's really all it is. So when your, random characters start referring to your character, who's clearly female, as he, like over and over and over again, tells me that your QA people didn't care that that was happening, or that you made a design decision that said that that wasn't worth your time to take that out in the budget or whatever. Little things like that. It's mostly about small details, and it's not necessarily that women don't like violent games or gory games or whatever. Like, that's not what it's about, and not that we're making a really gory game or whatever. It's not a zombie shooter with zombies with bows on their heads. That's what we're making.
Just a follow-up, when we've been asked to make women's games, the parameters we're given are things like put lots of shiny things in the game, and things like that. It doesn't seem like they're describing women, it sounds like they're describing pros. And that's from women in business telling us what to make for women. So, I was curious.
There's like that one, what is the popular fashion game out there right now on Facebook? What is that one called?
Shoes!
I like fashion stuff too. I mean, I don't dislike it. But I want more than just that, and I would like other games to also reflect the fact that women are playing them, when clearly they are.
It's like when they advertise jiggle physics or something. That's totally not marketed towards us at all.
Yeah, it's like all these like little details that just make you feel excluded, really, and that's really what I want to approach. I'm not trying to make a radically different game, and I think men would actually enjoy playing our game, but.
Is that, I'm sort of surprised. I was expecting you to talk about sort of story voice and stuff like that. You're not. You're really talking about sort of details and just finishing and stuff like that. It's like the person I live with who happens to be a woman. Reads a lot of murder mysteries.
Scandalous. Listen to this.
A lot of murder mysteries, and she can tell without looking at the name on the cover whether it was written by a man or a woman. Yeah, that's usually fairly. And she likes a good murder mystery, and by who does it? But boy, she just kind of really doesn't like the men ones as much as she likes the women ones. And it's a kind of voice, it's a direction of narrative, it's all that kind of stuff. But you're not really talking about something almost philosophical like that. You're really talking about details and nuts and bolts and just stupid, not stupid stuff, but devil in the details. Devil in the details.
Right, yeah.
Devil in the details stuff. That's me.
Yeah, it's mostly about that. I mean, I like when a character is kind of fleshed out. I mean, I look at different. Okay, so what I looked at, as a gamer, people who make mods. What are they making mods of? And what are women making mods of? Like, oh, they want more fashion things. Oh, they'd like another hairstyle. Oh, look, this character did something really, really evil, and they're trying to figure out a way to not have to deal with that. Or one case, this one woman who's on our customer panel, she created an entire mod for Dragon Age that puts another companion in the game because she thought all the love interests sucked. And she didn't like the fact that Alistair, I won't spoil the game, but she didn't like some of the issues in the game. So she created an entire mod of a whole story. It's fully voiced. She keeps adding to it. That tells me, hey, and then not only that, but it's been downloaded 15,000 times, and the videos on YouTube have over 500,000 views. I mean, somebody is watching this, so it matters to somebody. That kind of stuff. When you look at fan fiction, if you keep seeing the same theme come up over a particular event in a game, because it really bothers somebody because it wasn't finished, or the end of KOTOR, I actually wrote a fanfic about that because I hated the way the game ended, on the light side. I just was who would do this? And then I wrote my own ending, and I wasn't the only one. Hundreds of women wrote their own ending, and thousands more read that. So those are the kinds of things that I want to change, in games. Because clearly those are people trying to cobble together a solution to a problem that they, a pain point that they perceive.
What about your employees in terms of your makeup, men versus women?
We do have men on our team. We have mostly women right now. We've got 11 people. 3 of them are male. And actually, those 3 aren't directly involved with development at the moment, but we are hiring. So I would like to balance out the team a little bit, to be quite honest, because I don't want it to be, I want an inclusive, diverse team.
Is there, so the men aren't involved with the ones you have right now aren't involved with the actual?
No, we have a systems engineer and a composer and a web developer.
So I was just curious if you had, with the males who had been involved with some of that, if there was a difference, or did you notice the males were what is this stuff, and the women were well, this is important. If there was any difference in the way they were approaching.
Actually, we have within our own group of women writers. I have 3 writers right now, and one of them, she's she wants to change this one character because she thinks that character is too girly, and the other 2 women are this character is fine the way she is, and they're constantly bickering back and forth about that. So.
You want to share some of your thoughts maybe around the episodic stuff and some of the risks that are not useful? I was thinking more shelf life, if it increases or decreases as you go through season.
I really can't speak to that yet because I haven't actually experienced it. I know from the people that we've talked to over at Telltale, one of the risks is losing, engagement between episodes. So planning, having transmedia touch points between episodes is going to be really important to us. But we already kind of planned for that. So, yeah.
I guess when you play games, Call of Duty or Gears or Halo, if you play those games where there's a fairly, if not zero, interaction with women, does that affect your interest in it, or is it just something you don't think of? When you're fighting enemies, you're oh, I wish there was a woman enemy, or I wish there were more women allies. Or is it just not something you don't think
of? I don't really play. Well, I've played some shooters, but I don't play Call of Duty online with people or anything like that. I've played Team Fortress 2, but only with my friends. And that's all guys in the all guy characters, the cartoon characters. That doesn't really bother me so much because I'm not trying to play my own character through a story where I have to identify with that character. So I don't really, I mean, that's, you're just playing with your friends and like, trying to kill them in really fun and entertaining ways. Yeah.
Will you be able to use any of these tax credits at all?
Oh yeah, we still talk about tax credits, don't we? Oh my gosh. All right, I will, this is actually pretty quick. Tax credits. So yes, we do plan on using some of these tax credits when we find our CPA. So I don't know how many of you have talked to the Canadians at GDC. Any of you?
Pretty much every country has tax credits.
Right. The Canadians are extraordinarily aggressive right now about their tax credits. They want like everyone to move to Canada, like it's the promised land or something. I don't know about that, but anyways, I wanted to share what Minnesota has because these are relatively new. These happened in 2010. And so there is an angel investor tax credit and an R&D tax credit. And there always was an R&D tax credit, but it changed in 2010 so that you don't have to be a giant corporation to take advantage of it. So with the angel investor tax credit, this one. So it provides 25% individual and a 25% individual income tax credit to qualified investors investing in qualified businesses. And you actually have to apply at the state to become a qualified business. And there's some rules around that, which is on the next slide. And but what's cool about it is that you don't have to be a Minnesotan to invest in a Minnesota company. So someone outside of the state or outside of the country can invest in a company here and get 25% back, which is pretty nice when you think about it, because there's a lot of risk in seed funding. So,
for some of us who aren't nearly as savvy as you are.
Sorry.
Could you go back to that one just for a second?
Sure.
Can you just really quick go down? It's the 25% individual income tax credit. That's a credit on.
Okay.
I'm a qualified investor and I give you $1,000.
Yes. So you would get back, okay, so you're qualified, you actually have to spend more than $1,000.
I spend 10 units of whatever the minimum unit is.
Yeah, and then you would get the 2.5 back.
I would get to take that off on my personal income tax?
Yeah, and it's refundable. So that means even if you don't owe taxes, the state of Minnesota cuts you a check.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that went over several things.
Okay, yeah. So the state of Minnesota is paying you.
I actually do a Schedule C and things like that. And I understand a few things like that. I bet you went over a couple heads. That's really cool.
Yeah, it actually is really cool. Yeah. It's refundable.
Yeah, so that's really neat.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me clarify that.
And it's a credit, not a deduction?
It's a credit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which again, if you have other people do your taxes and you don't understand what it is, that's.
Yeah, credits are nice. Yeah, it is. It's money in your.
Which means you get $10,000 and I only have to spend
the 75. Yeah.
That's really neat. Let's get those juices going.
Okay.
So what is it? Do it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure what the minimum is, but I know that you can't be over $4 million. But I know you have to, because to be a qualified.
Jacqueline, you just designed how I think.
I know. It can't be over $4 million.
What is behind you is that?
Yeah. No, there is a minimum, and I don't remember what it is. It's on the website. Like, to be a qualified investor, you have to invest at, like, I think it's $100,000. Don't quote me on that. But to be qualified, you have to be a Minnesota business, so you can't do like your C Corp Delaware stuff. Which, for those of you that don't know, like, people want to like incorporate in Delaware because they don't have to pay taxes. So you actually have to do your corporation here in Minnesota, and you have to have a minimum of 51% of employees and 51% of your payroll has to be in Minnesota. So they want you to hire Minnesotans for your business. and you have to have fewer than 25 employees. That doesn't count contractors, as far as I know. And you have to pay at least 175% of poverty level and 175% of federal minimum wage for your interns. So you have to pay your interns too. And you can't have been in operation for 10 years. You can't have previously received private equity investments in the past. And you can't have like a certain amount of income as well. So like, but it's like millions and millions of dollars of income, not like $100,000 of income. Well, it depends how your corporation is set up. But yeah, it's revenue.
So does that have to be C Corp? Can't be LLC?
No, it can be, you can, because an individual can invest in an LLC or an S Corp, so it can be those, it doesn't have to be a C Corp.
But not a sole proprietorship?
I don't think no one would do that.
What's the other slide? You have to be a qualified.
You have to be a qualified investor and you have to be a qualified business. You actually have to file an application with the state of Minnesota, which you cannot go and do tonight because the government's closed. So there's some people that are waiting in the hopper right now who haven't been. But the other thing, there's actually like a cap. I think it's like 15 or I don't want to say it's 15 or $25 million that the state of Minnesota has put aside to pay these credits, and like people have only used like I think 1.2 million last year. So there's all this money the government put aside to pay back these credits, and nobody's applying for them. So
25%.
it's nice, right? Okay. It makes you kind of want to be an angel investor, doesn't it? Because you're like, it's like, well, you wouldn't lose all your money. The second one is the R&D tax credit, and this is based on like payroll and labor. It's not, so what doesn't count is like the equipment you buy. And for us in the game industry, like for example, my writers and my artists would not, their labor doesn't count towards R&D, but my developers do. So, I don't know why, but that's the way it works. And where your team members are matters too. So you want to make sure your team is like here, like the ones that are actually qualified for the R&D credit are here in the state. And you get 10% of up to the first $2 million in payroll expenses. And so that's kind of nice because that is also a refundable credit. So even if you don't owe any taxes, the government cuts you a check for that 10%, which is pretty cool.
So if you keep all your artists on look development for the front end, does that count?
Well, you know, I was talking to this one woman at the Alliant group, and they're like kind of like a big CPA firm. And she's like, well, and I'm like, well, one of my writers did put a bunch of dialogue into Unity. And she's like, well, I guess that might count. So we'll see. Maybe everybody's going to be putting dialogue into Unity. I don't know. Obviously, there's some gray areas and some stuff that they're going to work out. But, you know, if you networked in the MHTA, you could influence your legislature to go, hey, artists and writers are part of my R&D.
Do they come with a Geiger counter and like payment every day? How do they know who's doing development?
They look at your books and stuff, like in your payroll.
It's
And,
all based on role?
yeah, it's based on role and like what they're actually. I haven't been through the process, so I don't know. But it's actually pretty detailed. Like it's part of like the auditing that happens. Like, yeah. Oh, and the other thing is though, is that where your people, like depending on where your people are, if you have a good CPA, there's like different credits. So like my writers who are not in the state, but I have an artist in Texas, like there might be things that her labor qualifies for, but I don't think we're paying her enough to be eligible for any of that stuff right now. So I think we have to prove a cap. Okay. Speaking of Texas, so Texas has what are called production grants. I mean, there's a lot of game industries in Texas right now, so just as a comparison point, it's 5 to 25%, and you only really get the 25% if you're spending a ton of money there, or B, you are in like West Egypt or something, Texas, like near no city. There's like some incentives to like put your game studio like in the middle of nowhere. I don't know why you would do that to yourself. They have they have a pretty big film industry stuff, so the game industry stuff kind of filters in with the film industry stuff, and it's per project, so you're eligible after the project is complete. And there's some other random bonuses to this as well, and over 70% of labor and spend needs to be in the state. So for the film industry, like the stuff you buy is actually eligible for credit, but like for the game industry, it's just the labor. And then Canada, it's by province, and it's like kind of all over the board. So British Columbia actually has, you can't read the black text here. So the top is animation, and the second is digital media. They actually split out those two things in their tax for whatever reason. So British Columbia has like a 15 to 75% credit. It depends. There's like different conditions on whether or not it's refundable for all of the provinces, but some of them are and some of them aren't. For digital media, like Manitoba and Nova Scotia have like these crazy like 40-50% of labor, and it's refundable, but like, why would you want to put your company in Nova Scotia? I know, but it's like, well, at least, in British Columbia, Quebec, and Ontario, there's like actual industry there, and so that makes sense. And clearly, the thing about British Columbia that's really nice is they've got a 30% refundable tax credit, angel investment, or it's not an angel investment, it's just an investment credit. And it's refundable if it's an individual investor, but if it's a corporate investor, it's not refundable.
Oh, it's French.
Yeah, it's French. Yes. Yeah. In Quebec, if you hire French workers doing French language things, you get a bigger credit. That's actually what this R&D.
Labor doesn't have to be French. They have to be doing French things.
No, the labor has to be French, and they have to be doing French things. Yes. Yeah, I think that's funny too. This is like they call it, what do they call it? Like SR and ED. So it's like experimental development, scientific research and experimental development credit, which is basically your R&D credit. And it can and cannot be, depending on what it is, it may or may not be refundable. But it's pretty much better than here, like pretty much all across the board. So that's Canada.
When you say something like 40% of eligible labor, of the taxes on that or of their actual salary? I don't understand.
Oh, so qualified labor and like this, okay. Eligible labor and qualified labor are basically the same thing. It's just the provinces use it differently, but it's like of the people who are working in Manitoba on that particular, for that particular company or whatever, doing that particular task, such as digital media.
If we paid them $50,000 to get 40% of that back?
Yes. Now you understand why all of these companies just opened huge studios in Canada.
Now, 20 years ago, in the entertainment business, I used to know animators and those people. It used to be very difficult for me to go to Canada to work.
It isn't anymore.
Oh, okay, so it isn't difficult for me to go to work. It sounds to me like you're saying it's not difficult for me to start a company there.
No, it's not. You only need like $300,000. Yeah.
The problem used to be is if I went to go work for a Canadian company, they wouldn't let me in. Because there were Canadians, they wanted to give
you
me
might be
away.
on their blacklist.
What's that? Yeah, well, it used to be a big deal. I got a friend who, went to Vancouver with his Emmy, because he was working for a Canadian company to say, yes, I want an Emmy making a TV show that employed 150 Canadians. That's why you should be on my green card.
It's relaxed quite a bit in the last few years.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and especially in these, like people with this skilled kind of labor. And then there's like a few others, like bioscience, and there's a few other like industries that Canada is after right now. In fact, they actually are a sponsor of the Minnesota Cup.
But again, is that for me to take a team of 5 people and go work at Kickstarter? Or is that for me to start a company out there that employs 20 people?
You probably want to do the latter there. I don't.
That's
There's-
what this sounds like. Is if I'm employing Canadians, they're going to give me some money back.
Yes.
But if I go out there and take a Canadian person's job, they're not going to necessarily be able to take it.
No, but there's jobs aplenty out there right now. There's like people posting talent. Yeah, so if you wanted to move to Canada, those of you that just graduated with a degree, like, there's probably jobs there.
There's a whole bunch of animation studios moving into Vancouver again. It goes up and down
Yeah.
like the tides. And
Yeah, and they actually reduced their credit. They used to have a higher digital media credit that was kind of more on par. It was like 30%, but they reduced it. The other thing that I was told was that if you import a foreign worker who's making over $100,000 Canadian, that they get a 5-year tax holiday in Canada.
get to Winnebago, guys.
I know, right? Let's all move to Canada. I'm trying to not sell you on Canada right now. Sorry. Oh, Canada. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so.
That's a good point. There's several places. We have a wonderful coastline.
Yeah.
A beautiful coastline. Some great transportation.
All right. So some other places with significant subsidies right now is Louisiana. Louisiana just released a bunch of game industry subsidies, although I don't know exactly why you'd want to move your game company to Louisiana, but right. In my opinion on that is that it's not that I don't like New Orleans, because I really do. It's I don't think there's a talent pool there to support the industry. And then Singapore actually has the best ones right now, but I don't have data on that. And then Australia just published a bunch of tax credits this year too. The UK is talking about doing it because people keep leaving the UK to go to Canada, and Massachusetts is talking about doing it as well. And some places in California that aren't the Valley and aren't LA are talking about doing some different incentives for game industry companies to move out into the burbs. So it's a hot industry right now, the game industry. There's so much convergence and interactive that people really see this as the future of where they want the economy to go. They want all these kind of knowledge creative workers, an army of artists and developers and things like that, which is kind of cool actually. Okay, so here's just a basic rundown table that I'm really not going to go over because we just spent a bit of time doing that. So in conclusion, the cake is not a lie. And I know because I had that cake made. That's a real cake. And there's a lot more going on here than it actually seems like there is to people that aren't in this room. And especially with the history of advertising agencies and corporation, all the Fortune 500 corporations that are here in the Twin Cities and their marketing teams and all of this other stuff, and the convergence and interactive, that Minnesota definitely has an interest in interactive development, but they need more visibility to what we're doing, what we in this room are doing. And so I encourage you to get out there and network and just say, hey, I'm a game developer and I'm here in Minnesota. So the more that they see us, the more visibility that they have to us, the better it's going to be for us. So let's change that. Okay, and then that's my contact info. Thank you.